There he
Hey,
is.
Dave. Here you go. I just came back from the car show.
Yeah.
Right.
Car
Do you know
show?
how much it was? They got cars and bikes and everything here at the Barbecue Challenge.
Absolutely.
Something that I'm hoping you're going to discover when you play this game. Barrio's Barbecue Challenge, a game that I am pleased and thankful to both American Pinball, Barry Oursler, and the whole team here to have this game developed and present to you. I'm just hoping that this is a worthy tribute to Barry Oursler's 40 years of game design. I'll tell you, when I was talking with Barry,
Yeah.
and he let me know what the gist of the initial design was going to be when he was inviting me on the project to be co-game designer with him, and he said Space Shuttle, and I got to tell him, I got to remind him that Space Shuttle was my very first pinball game I ever played in my life. So that is why Space Shuttle holds a very close feeling in my heart. It's like the release of this game is a loop of my life.
Okay.
Really, that's what it feels like. That I get to have my name anywhere near Barry to release a game based on Space Shuttle. My first experience in pinball is the reason why I'm in pinball today.
And then some people ask me all the time, they go, why barbecue? Well, so originally the game started out as Car Hop.
Right.
But I explained to Barry that a game called Car Hop had already been developed by Gottlieb back in 84, 85. And not only that, times have changed. There weren't really a lot of car hops in the United States. However, we came across something that's truly Americana. Americana to the point that every summer there are hundreds, if not thousands, of barbecue festivals, corn boils, big kind of outdoor gatherings where there's car shows, or just like the one we're right here at, right?
Right, yeah.
Going on across America. And in these moments, there's some real fun things to do. So we captured that essence in the pinball. Barry was the fastest gun in the industry, understand that. So in January of 2022,
Right.
Barry had already submitted his whitewood drawings. In fact, I think Steve's
this
got
is
one.
yeah.
He had submitted this drawing already to us. And in fact, if you can see over here on the right, there's the drop targets are way over here on the right side. The spinners are still on the ramps. The saucers are in the spots. There's just a few fine points that we had to make.
The barbecue theme is not random. I went to many barbecue restaurants in Texas with Barry. It was one of the one of his favorite things to do, right? And when he was ready to go to lunch, you better be ready.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do the same thing with
You
you.
better be ready, okay? And so there were quite a few barbecue restaurants we Texans went and visited many days. So it was one of the things that he took his good friends to, and I'm glad to be able to count myself one of them.
So to go back quite a few years earlier, in 2009, okay, this is some time ago.
Wow.
I put on a pinball show in Niagara Falls, New York, and it was with a barbecue festival at the same time. And we had a car show. So we had a barbecue festival outside, a pinball show inside with about 100 pins, and we had a car show going on at the same time, plus a band and a bunch of other things. And it was a hoot of a weekend.
That's perfect.
And most people were like, this is what's going on. Well, when we talked about barbecue, it just started coming together.
When this game was going to be called Car Hop and we started to work on it, we just wanted to get something down nice and quick, just to get the ideas down.
Absolutely.
All right, just to get anything on paper based on the quick design, the first draft, and here it is. Here is the first ever draft. There's not much on it, but I keep it for the history of it because it is literally the first thing that Barry and I wrote on to see what was going to be in the game. All right, and this is one of those, just get it down really quickly, and as we're talking about other things, we'll get back to it later, and then at least we'll have this, and we'll get things started. And my initial rule set was based off this skeleton.
Got it.
Right.
And if you look back far enough, even right there, we already had the spinners on the ramps because the ramp spinners were something that I had always thought would be really cool. we go back in history far enough, we could see it on some games like Capcom's Kingpin on the center ramp. So there are many times that, we borrow little things, but we definitely had some fun with this. So Barry was the fastest gun, and he was developing this very fast. He had basically submitted this to Steve, myself, the engineering team here at American Pinball, and that was on a Friday. And he was, with the phone call was pretty easy. He was so excited about shooting the game, playing it, couldn't wait to come back up here to Chicago to spend time with people and talk about it. And he gave me all the paperwork. I had set up a time frame with him. It was the end of January. And I said to Barry, I says, give us about a month to 2 months. Maybe, he was going through some cancer treatment at the time. And he said probably by around April he'd be good. So
while this is happening, understand that in the background, Barry and I are still talking, conversing. I mean, I'm on the phone with him. We're talking about, updating certain different versions of this.
Teams.
I can go over here and get more versions of it. Just like, wait, give me a moment. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Okay,
he's back. What do you
got? More iterations, right?
Gotcha.
So while that timeline was going on, here I have a second iteration where we started getting in what some of the inserts were going to be. So
right.
Some of them, right? So we have malt, we have car hop, we have burgers, we have fries, we have drinks, we have soda here, right? So things are starting to come together. Yes, we are solidifying that these are the locks. The drop target bank was still on the right. We were still wanted to see how was that going to work. Would it be possible to have that sweepable effect into the top hole? So we were still experimenting with some of that. And then I started to get a little bit of what the rules might be. I mean, this is still very dirty as far as the inserts. This is just getting them down as to what the numbers might be. You might notice the scaling is quite small on this, or different plans on what type of scaling this might be.
Correct.
Would it be a alphanumeric? Right?
We toyed with that.
Alphanumeric.
We toyed with a dot matrix too.
Dot matrix display, right? Because I mean, one of the keys to this game is to have it be a simple looking game.
Right.
Also a more affordable game.
More affordable game.
Right. So that's kind of where the scaling was. You can see the telltale rule of 3 action going on with the ramps and some of the other aspects that are classic Barry design, I would say.
Absolutely.
And so we'll move on to the next contestant here, right? So here is where you can slowly start seeing the radial design come into play as far as the inserts.
Right.
This would become a key point later. Yes, it does look like a clock for a subtle reason, which wasn't quite developed here yet, but was in my mind.
Right.
So yes, things are more starting to go into play. We still have the malt, we still have the soda, we still have the targets here, we still have the spinners on the ramps, and all of that. So as you can see, I'm very glad I was able to keep all this history. By the way, this is very, very close to my heart, and I'm glad I have all this, and I'm glad that you all will be able to see this.
Absolutely.
As it was being developed, because I mean, it was and is a great honor and privilege to have been working with Barry, knowing that, I mean, as we were talking about, Barry was in discussion of coming up here to Chicago. I already was up here. I was already going to be discussing things that I needed to talk with Barry about. Like, I wanted to ask him what medium burger means. That doesn't, things like that. That we were working on to really solidify the design, get it made, get it shooting, and then move on from there. And essentially, me serving as Barry's understudy on my journey to become a game designer myself.
Correct.
That was the plan.
Yes. And we kept developing the plan. And we were about ready to build the Whitewoods, right? And then unfortunately, that fateful day, probably 3 days after he submitted his drawings to us, his wife called me to tell me that he had passed due to complications during his cancer treatment, which took the wind out of our sails for a moment. I know you were beside yourself.
I know where I was. I was in I can point to that room where I was in the office.
You were standing outside my office, and you had that look, and I already know.
Man, before that time, before that time, I got the call from Kathy, right? We talked, okay. I calmed myself down. I think, grieve, do what you have to do, right?
I think we all grieved for a bit.
Right. Then you got to get yourself together and be a professional.
Understand that Barry had touched a lot of people in this industry.
Yeah.
A lot. And we had a lot of people in this industry come together and basically called out, that Barry was a great guy. And we did a press release about his passing, and it was tough on his family, of course. And we worked hard, but I think it was like 2 days after this, we brought the team together, and that's when the name changed. The name changed from Barbecue Challenge to Barry Oursler Barbecue Challenge.
Right.
We knew we were going to honor the man, and Steve kind of locked himself in his office for the next couple days.
Yeah, at that point, I was like, I decided. First thing I did was there were, again, as I said before, there were things I was going to be discussing with Barry.
Got it.
When we met.
Yep.
I hurriedly
wrote down
and got all my notes together so I didn't lose anything. Because if I lost anything, that would just hurt so much if I did. So I want to make sure I get everything down, make sure these are the things that Barry wanted, these are the things that I wanted, these are the things we talked about, these are the things we were going to discuss, right? Got them down on the initial rule set so that they would be retained. And then as I was doing that, slowly but surely, I started making the game Barry's game.
Correct.
And you'll see what that means later. Those of you who have already played the game, those of you who have been to the seminars know what that means. We pointed these things out, but we'll get to that later.
And some people are still discovering what that means. And don't feel bad when you see this video and you learn some new stuff today. So, granted, this is a great game. It's, like we said before, simple on the outside, but hard to master. It also, you got to risk it in order to get it.
You got to risk it for the brisket, right?
You got to risk it for the brisket. There you go. I like that. That's a good new term. Understand that, Barry Oursler's Barbecue Challenge, Steve and I have been playing against each other. We've actually streamed it. You can see it on our American Pinball stream. There was one night where, during the stream, it was Ray and me versus Steve.
Right.
And we had put on 1 billion points, and Steve Bowden was at 20 million with one ball left.
Because I did nothing.
One ball Bowden.
I did nothing up to that point because
nothing.
I was risking things and not cashing in.
Oh, he risked it all.
Like my barbecue cooking was just not quite there. Nope. Like I had it, but then I would mess up at the end. And just like barbecue shows, you got to present your meal correctly.
That's correct.
Otherwise, you will be punished for that. And I was. And they weren't up to that point.
Yeah. But you ended up putting like 2 billion points, 3 billion points, and past us, and we were like, okay. Understand that Barbecue Challenge is yet not a weird title, but it's a great title because it fits in with the genre of the classic games from the gone by era of Williams and Bally, when they did things like Taxi and Diner,
Fishtails.
Now we have Barbecue Challenge.
Yeah.